John stands on a cottage deck overlooking a small lake. The sun has long since set, and with no lights, save those from his cottage, the night sky is alight with stars. The cottage is surrounded for miles by forest, with a small winding dirt road that stretches for several miles before connecting to a secluded country road. The dirt road, barely visible even if you know to look for it, is the only way in. He leans against the railing, a small glass of wine in his hand, listening to the cries of cicadas and the croaking of frogs. The night does not fill him with fear. The seclusion, the sounds of nature, the darkness, all fill him with comfort. They remind him of times he would bring his family out here. His wife, Kelly, and their son, Dylan, loved nature almost as much as him, and they spent many nights hiking into the middle of the forest, hunting for dinner, and preparing it at camp. Their wealth would have allowed them to stay in more luxurious areas, but the family loved the ruggedness of the outdoors, of providing for yourself. And John and Kelly felt it was important to teach their son to be able to provide for himself. John slowly lifts the glass to his mouth, his drink almost empty. His hand moves slowly, deliberately, allowing him to savor the moment and make it last. He closes his eyes and swallows, paying attention to every sense, the smells, the sounds, the taste, holding it in his mind. When the wine is gone, he turns and opens the sliding door, stepping inside. His bare feet step on the bearskin rug, and he pulls the door shut and locks it with an audible click. He crosses over the wooden floor to the kitchen, methodically cleaning his glass and dinnerware, giving his mind time to think of the work that must be done tonight. He grabs a garbage bag from under the sink and crosses into the living room, pausing in front of the door to pull on a plastic jumpsuit, shoes, and disposable gloves. Opening his door and stepping outside, he opens the trunk of his car and pulls out the plastic wrap coating the inside, carefully folding it to keep the fibers and blood safely tucked into the bundle. He stuffs the bundle into the garbage bag and ties it shut. Shutting the trunk, John goes inside, pulls the door shut, and locks it. Turning, he walks through the living room to a door that leads to the basement, an addition made after his wife and son passed away. As he opens the door, faint sounds begin to filter up, competing with the sounds of the outside. As he eases the door shut, the sounds of the outside world slowly fade away. The relaxing sound of cicadas and frogs replaced by ragged breaths, whimpering, and the crinkles of his plastic suit. John took a deep breath, remembering the promise he'd made to Kelly. When she'd gotten pregnant, he'd promised to leave this life behind. John turned and began slowly walking down the stairs, each step soft yet deliberately loud enough to be heard by anyone below. As he reached the bottom, John set the bag on the floor and took in the sight of the man on the table. The table lay at the opposite end of the concrete room, the man strapped on top of it. The table extended out from a small metal door in the wall. 2 small round buttons were built into the wall to the left of the door. Above the man was a mirror, forcing him to watch what John had done to him. The wall to John's left held a metal table covered in various metal instruments. Scalpels, saws, knives, even a box cutter. Most were covered in blood. Kelly would not have approved, but then Kelly wasn't here. John crossed the room and walked to the table the man was on, ignoring the welding helmet he'd worn the last few times he was here. He took his time, enjoying the gurgling noises the man on the table was making. John passed by the man's body, the metal cuffs holding his hands, feet, and torso tightly in place. He paused when he reached the man's head close to the wall and the small metal door. The man rolled his eyes over and looked up at John. The man's eyes, though lidless, seemed to grow larger as he saw John's face for the first time. John smiled at him, then, without breaking eye contact, reached over to the wall and pressed the top button. The metal door opened, revealing a dark, rectangular hole. After a moment, the table began sliding into the hole in the wall, the man still strapped to it. The man's motions, though weak, grew more frantic, and the noises he made grew more desperate. Once the man and the table were fully inside, John pushed the lower button, and the door slid shut. Though John could no longer see inside, he knew that the inside would now be much brighter and steadily growing hotter. The man's screams grew louder for a while before abruptly being cut off. John smiled, thinking of the names the man had given him.